Stepping back into the world of Warhammer is always a fantastical journey, and with Total War, Warhammer 2, never before has an adaptation of the source material felt quite so natural. With the second installment in its massive strategy game trilogy, developer Creative Assembly has begun flexing its design muscles. Battles are bigger and more expressively animated, and scores of soldiers of all different types, be they ghastly undead or bloodthirsty dinosaurs, sound impeccable, but the improvements run well beyond the aesthetic and into the fineries of tactical and strategic play. Where the first entry in the series kept to standard Total War form with an open-ended, risk-inspired campaign of territory control, now there's a directed focus, a vortex which is said to seal away legions of chaos demons. Your target takes the form of a swirling vortex comprised of magical energies. As you progress through a pre-made set of special quests, you'll be able to start performing rituals that will, in time, allow you to wrench control of the vortex from everyone else. But, since all the other races of the world are pushing towards the same end, your progress will be marked along a track with 5 milestones. Each time you, or anyone else, performs one of the 5 successive rituals, the pace of the entire campaign picks up. This mode still balances Total War's signature dualistic design. As you're worrying about the stability of the vortex, you'll also need to manage cities and tax your people, as usual. You'll research new tactics, weapons, and monsters, and conduct diplomatic consorts with the various races of Warhammer. And, should talks break down and 2 or more armies meet, you'll be ushered into a tactical view that will task you with micromanaging your troops. Rituals often take quite some time to complete, and, in the interim, 3 of your most powerful cities will be marked. Opposing factions will try to sack, capture, or raze any of them. And, if you don't control all 3 by the end of the ritual timer, you'll have to try again, and still deal with the invaders you directed to your lands. Completing rituals marks major steps in the game, in part because you'll need to ensure the safety of your home front while you presumably press battle lines across the map. It complicates play with an interesting, macroscopic challenge that every player will be able to approach a little differently. The global quest tracker, Countdown, has been seen before in Masters of Magic descended strategy games, but here it's backed with specific quests that play to the lore of each race within the Warhammer universe. Lord Mazdamundi, for example, is struggling to revive the great Slann mage priests who once guided the feral lizardmen on the fields of battle. And your quests will revive and recruit the long-slumbering Slann to use in your own armies. That's quite distinct from the approach the Dark Elves or the rat-like Skaven will take to victory, for example. The former specializes in naval combat and tailor-made invasion vessels known as Black Arks, while the chittering clan rats of the Skaven are better suited to hit-and-run attacks. Their whole civilization being subterranean means they need not worry so much about foes raising their ritual sites. No caption provided. Gallery image 1, gallery image 2, gallery image 3, gallery image 4, gallery image 5, gallery image 6, gallery image 7, gallery image 8, gallery image 9, gallery image 10. As you progress through the campaign, your foes become more numerous and the evil forces of chaos will filter onto the map in an attempt to stop you. During the late game, after 50 hours or more of play, they will be monstrously powerful. These are tests, in a sense, as they'll gauge how well you've distributed your forces and managed the challenges posed to you thus far. And they encourage you to seek help from your neighbors, as it's difficult to pull together the might all on your own. That brings up one of Warhammer 2's most engaging consequences of the Vortex rituals. Progression yields huge impacts for diplomacy, encouraging you to forge alliances with those of your own faction. This makes sense, in play, because each group's broad goals are distinct within the lore. Lizardmen, for example, believe themselves to be the only ones following the will of the old gods, and they are among the closest this universe gets to an unambiguous good. Dark Elves, by contrast, are fueled by torture and slavery and causing pain to others. Should they wrench control of the vortex, they will, of course, use it for their own violent ends. This confluence of goals can lead to the creation of confederations, which are a fancy name for one of the most useful ways to build your empire. Like minds can, over time, be persuaded to let themselves be absorbed. This merges politics, economies, and research trees, and gives you a quick, sudden expansion of territory, often with a new legion of eager soldiers for your command. This keeps the game from chugging in the middle and latter stages, where you'd have to take back razed cities from marauders only to carry the dead weight of a developing province for a while before seeing any return. The new system both fits thematically and boosts the importance of diplomatic and factional ties on the map. Generally you'll get along with your own groups better, but you'll also find yourself stepping into long-standing political alliances, many of which aren't always the easiest to navigate. The focus, of course, is still on the battles, but this breaks up long stretches of action with some careful maneuvering from time to time. As you pick up more subjects and commission larger and larger armies, you'll no doubt unearth some of the other major new additions to play. Choke point maps, for instance, give you a lot more to consider in your approach to special in-game locations. Some will funnel your forces through a bridge, giving you a very narrow front on which to concentrate, others will use different types of land to give bouts more depth. Through 1,000 tiny tweaks, they've refined the experience into one of the most intriguing and exciting strategy games ever. The effect on play with that alone is huge, as it means many powerful strategies aren't always applicable. At the same time, you may find that a holdout army formed of all cavalry can repel a far stronger force in the right conditions. In time, you'll learn where these battlefields lie on the map. That, in turn, opens up countless other broad-scale strategies designed to guide foes to the points where you've got the strongest defenses. You could always do this to a degree, of course, but the results are far starker here, on top of adding much-needed variety to play. Combined with the pacing changes that the race to control the vortex brings, Total War, Warhammer 2 feels fresh, even though you'll be stepping into the same universe as last time. Eye of the Vortex, as the single-player mode is called, is among the best a campaign of this type could be. It encourages the right amount of conflict to keep you moving, paces itself well, fits plenty of in-universe lore for die-hard fans, and fine-tunes about every other facet of its predecessor. Plus, as the game wears on, you can rest assured there's a definite, clean ending. Someone's going to complete the rituals even if you don't. At the same time, the multi-part and complex victory conditions can often lead to some of the most nail-biting matches around, made that much better by diverse maps that encourage novel tactics with each bout. Nothing feels quite as exhilarating as holding a key province against multiple unsuccessful assaults thanks to your own cunning. Every piece in Total War, Warhammer 2 is designed to force you to innovate and create new plans on the fly, testing your prowess over and over in new and exciting ways. In fact, Warhammer 2 surpasses its predecessor in nearly every respect. Everything except the camera, which doesn't zoom out far enough and has been a source of frustration for several Total War games now and multiplayer. The complaint with its online multiplayer is simple: there aren't enough factions for competitive play. At present, you can only use the 4 groups featured in the Eye of the Vortex campaign: Dark Elves, High Elves, Lizardmen, and Skaven. Given that the first game started with 5 for multiplayer and rapidly expanded from there, it feels like a step backwards to have so few options for now. Not being able to pit vampires against dinosaurs is a shame. And it'd be cool to see how elven dragons fare against the mighty dwarves, but that'll have to wait. There are some planned free content expansions coming, including a massive campaign map that spans the lands and races covered in both games. But that's some time off. Those fans who were put off by the monetization of content in the first will likely have the same complaints, though they can rest assured that the base game is robust on its own. With Warhammer 2, Total War doesn't reinvent anything so much as it iterates on the ideas that made the first so special. At its heart there's still the marriage of Total War's big-scale strategy and Warhammer's precise tactical play. But, through 1,000 tiny tweaks, they've refined the experience into one of the most intriguing and exciting strategy games ever. The biggest departure is the shift to a whole new continent, new playable races and a different style of campaign. We've left Warhammer's version of Europe behind for the New World, where high elves, dark elves and lizardmen skirmish over fertile plains, fetid swamps and mountainous jungles, while the skaven lurk beneath the surface, bursting out to infest ancient cities. If the first part gave us the classic Games Workshop take on a grimmer, darker high fantasy, the second installment takes us on a more exotic journey into foreign climes. What's more, playing as the less traditional fantasy races is a whole lot of fun. The first game was strongest when you moved away from the more history-based races towards the more fantastic factions with their spectacular war machines or brutish troops. This goes double for the second installment. Take those lizardmen, for example. Up to a point, they're exactly what you'd expect, bloodthirsty reptilians with an Aztec, Mayan style. Yet TWWH2 not only makes them strong, sympathetic, anti-chaos crusaders, but a blast to play. They can bring in dinosaur-like beasts to use as mounts, shock troops and artillery. Accomplish missions or erect certain buildings, and you can insta-spawn even weirder and more wondrous units from your cities. Bye. The Skaven, meanwhile, allow for a more sneaky play style, one where your settlements remain hidden until attacked or scouted, and where spreading your corruption is as important as developing influences for other races. The Skaven are particularly dependent on a specific resource, food, but come with a nice mixture of really cheap infantry units, perfect for swarming, and high-powered artillery units, poison-spreading units and lovable, burly rat ogres. Keep getting put down by those pompous high elves. Lay an ambush and show them why they need to treat you with a little more respect. Perhaps the biggest change, though, is the new style of campaign. TWWH2 hasn't abandoned Total War's signature mix of turn-based 4x, explore, expand, exploit and exterminate gameplay with real-time battlefield strategy, but it brings something new to the series, a contested endgame goal. It seems that, many years ago, the High Elves of the New World created a mighty magical vortex to defeat a chaos incursion. However, recent events have weakened the vortex, leaving its powers up for grabs. To seize control, each faction must go through 5 rituals, each one involving the gathering of a specific ritual currency, then the defense of 3 linked settlements while the ritual takes place. What impact does this have? Well, firstly, all the other factions are chasing the same objectives, so if you prefer a slow build, defensive style of play, tough luck, someone else will accumulate the ritual resources and get the first. Secondly, you need to vary your objectives. Dominating regions, wiping out enemies and building up your cities is still important, and will net you ritual currency, but you'll also need to explore mysterious ruins and battle over cities where there are rich veins of ritual currency up for grabs. Thirdly, you can't afford to be myopic. Focus just on the immediate struggles, and a faction halfway across the continent might trigger and complete a ritual, leaving you with little hope of intervening. That doesn't mean you need to expand continuously, but you do need a decent exploratory force. I like the pace added by this new style of campaign, but it's not the only adjustment the Creative Assembly has made to the formula. There are new treasures to lure you out to sea, plus new hazards to be avoided when you do so. The lords in command of your armies feel less like functional figures and more like developing characters, earning traits that make them more effective at building trade or tackling disorder. Lords in the Skaven and Dark Elf factions can even grow disloyal, meaning you need to keep them busy if you don't want them rebelling. New rights enable you to boost your faction's offensive, defensive or economic prowess, tailoring their strengths to your own style of play. Meanwhile, the existing game mechanics are as absorbing as they ever were. The economics are streamlined but still important. Fail to build or develop buildings that create currency, and you soon won't be able to afford existing armies, let alone recruit new ones. Diplomacy is nicely balanced, always tempting you towards rudeness and belligerence, while keeping you aware of the need to maintain some alliances and avoid engaging in war on more than one or two fronts at any one time. Plus, there's always a great sense of progression. As your territory expands and your coffers, hopefully, fill, you can be building new facilities that bring new units into the mix. At the same time your lords grow more powerful, mastering new abilities and perks from the skill tree, while arms and armor won in battle turn them into powerful units in their own right, capable of turning the tide of battle when used at the right time. And it's in battle where the Warhammer part of this Warhammer Total War hybrid feels most dominant. At times, the violence, color and anarchy of Games Workshop's vision feels a little subdued within the turn-by-turn gameplay of a Total War campaign, but on the battlefield there's plenty of room to let rip. You still need to plan carefully, use flanking maneuvers, protect your missile troops and artillery and make maximum use of cavalry charges and shock troops. This is still a game where hidden units and terrain make all the difference, where a commanding position can help smaller, weaker units fend off a vicious assault. Yet all the same, there's room for unexpected triumphs, magical attacks and slapstick disaster. Here a misplaced barrage from a bonkers chemical cannon can hit your lines harder than it hits the foe. A ragtag line of lizardmen javelin throwers can hold off Skaven shock troops long enough for the cavalry to close. There's nothing more fun than unleashing the Skaven's menace below attack near unguarded artillery units, watching the little clan rats erupt from the ground and wreaking havoc, or urging a mass of giant-sized rat ogres into the fray. The lizardmen, meanwhile, are plain hilarious in battle. On the one side of the field you have your Saurus berserkers going loco, chasing rooting troops on the field while you desperately try to redirect their energies elsewhere. On the other you might have Pterodon riders, colossal regiment wrecking dinos and a host of other cold-blooded marvels. And while the elves and dark elves are a little more conventional, you still get your dragons, brutal cavalry shock troops and some brutal artillery units to play with. If you want Lord of the Rings style spectacle with an exotic twist, TWWH2 delivers. What's more, Creative Assembly has got better at developing exciting, cinematic, multi-stage quest battles, playable both within the new campaign and in a separate battles mode. With specific terrain, objectives and units to contend with, these give you something different from the less orchestrated battles of the main campaign, which can grow samey after a while, and go some way towards allaying any suspicions you might have that Warhammer might actually be a better fit for a less complex Dawn of War style RTS. As to the second point, Creative Assembly has worked hard on making TWWH2 accessible. Not only are there very helpful tutorials embedded within 4 of the 8 different campaign factions, with the other 4 offering a variant based on the same race, but the excellent system of reminders and notifications helps make sure you don't miss trouble brewing in a city, an opportunity for construction or the chance to move an army at a crucial time. In fact, the only real frustration is that it can be tough work fielding and supporting the armies needed to keep pursuing the game's different objectives, all at once. In my first game, playing the elves, I was continually running out of cash, meaning I couldn't maintain my forces enough to keep expanding and I missed opportunities to gather ritual currency, leaving other factions to chase the ritual prize. Starting a second game as the mighty lizardman, I'd learnt from my mistakes, but still found it hard to field 3 good-sized armies, fight skaven to the north and south and quell regular unrest in my conquered cities. What's more, activating a ritual seems to bring a whole ton of trouble down on your head, to the point where you wonder if it's in your long-term interests to do so. This is one game where you need to keep a lot of plates spinning, which is where the option to play the campaign in online co-op, with both players playing the same faction, could make all the difference. This comes along with options for online battles, including a new all-against-all 4-player option, though I haven't had much time or opportunity to try this out pre-launch. Owners of the first chapter should also be aware that a free update coming later this year promises to unite both campaign maps in one larger grand campaign. Frankly, I'm not sure I could cope with that, but seasoned veterans who make it through the wealth of existing factions may love the chance to take the world on at an even bigger scale. Verdict. Think of it less as a sequel to Total War, Warhammer, more a second chapter with a different pace and style. This one makes even more of the hybrid gameplay that made the original so exciting, with new races and additional mechanics that freshen up the campaign even for those who played through the first campaign with several different factions. Despite more work on accessibility, this is a dauntingly vast and complex strategy game, but it's one with an equally huge sense of fun.